Okay, good morning and good afternoon. This is the National Community Solar Partnership, or NCSP, Technical Assistance Webinar. I'm Greg Leventis. I'm a Program Manager at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and Berkeley Lab will be leading the Direct Technical Assistance Initiative of the NCSP. This webinar is to familiarize partners with the technical assistance, or TA, available through NCSP, and to help those who want to apply for TA to understand the process to do so. We will begin today with a quick welcome. Then I'll give an overview of the National Community Solar Partnership. After that, I'll give an overview of the technical assistance that's available through NCSP. Then we will have Naeem Dargouth of Berkeley Lab, Alexandra Aznar of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and Kyle Fricker of the U.S. Department of Energy give some examples of technical assistance. Then I will walk through how to apply for TA through the NCSP. And finally, we will have some time for Q&A. So thanks to everyone on the line for joining. I first want to just say that all participants right now are muted to make sure that everyone can hear. I also want to say that if you have questions, please use the Q&A function in Zoom, and we will be taking those questions at the end. And finally, slides from today's webinar will be posted on the NCSP's community platform, which is powered by Mobilize. And when we talk about the community platform, we are talking about the NCSP Mobilize site. When you go to the community platform, the slides are going to be in the technical assistance file folder. So I want to give you a quick overview of the NCSP as a refresher, and for anyone who was not able to join for last week's webinar. So the NCSP is a coalition of community solar stakeholders that are working to expand access to affordable community solar to every American household by 2025. It has three goals. The first is make community solar accessible to every U.S. household. The second is ensure community solar is affordable for every household. And then finally, to enable communities to realize the supplementary benefits and other value streams from community solar installation. And the way we're going about that is there are three approaches on here. First is a network infrastructure, which includes the online community platform that I mentioned before. It will also include virtual and in-person meetings. There will be webinars and other tools to engage with DOE staff and with peers. The next is technical assistance. That's what we're discussing today. And then finally, there will be some collaboratives in which these will be multi-stakeholder teams with specific goals to address common barriers to solar adoption through a peer exchange. And I want to, on that point, just say, please take advantage of the network and the peer exchange aspect of the partnership, because these are other folks who are doing similar work and they're facing similar challenges. And so I think that reaching out to the other partners is going to be a very valuable part of the partnership. So next we will go to the main focus, which is the technical assistance available from the NCSP. I'm just going to give an overview here. So let me start with eligibility. First off, to be a partner, well, first you need to be a partner in order to both receive technical assistance and to have access to the community platform. If you'd like to register, you can go to the NCSP community platform. You see this here. Second, individuals that apply for partnership, they have to be citizens or permanent residents of the U.S. And public or private entities have to be legally formed in and maintain a primary place of business in the U.S. And then finally, the application is not for duplicative work. So, for example, if you have a grant from DOE or some other organization to do, say, X, then your TA request for the NCSP should be for something different. Now, this technical assistance is going to be provided by subject matter experts at either Berkeley's lab, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or NREL, or by third-party subject matter experts. And next, I'm going to talk about what is available, what areas of technical assistance are available. So there are a number of subject areas that are available. For example, identifying and valuing co-location benefits. And here, talking about, for example, pollinator-friendly PV, agriculture and PV, and floating PV. Then there is technical assistance for with customer acquisition, subscriber management, and billing. There's also assistance for integrating community solar with existing programs like weatherization and with other technologies like storage, for example. And then there is also assistance for outreach and engagement with governments, with public officials, with low-income communities, low-income households, and with utilities. Here are some other areas of TA that are available. There's program and project evaluation, project design, project finance. Here, for example, cost-benefit analysis, subscription structures, finance considerations, and modeling incentive structures for low and moderate income households. There's also project planning and development help, helping partners understand the regulatory environment, for example, state policies and rules. There's also resiliency of energy systems, grid impact, and interconnection issues. There's TA on solar modeling, analysis, and development tools, or tools for development. And then finally, for workforce development. And this is these areas are all laid out in the application. You can also you can see them there, and we will talk about that a little bit more later on. Now, how the technical assistance is delivered, and that is the type of TA, may take a lot of different forms. So there could be consultations, presentation or multiple presentations, support for workshops or other types of meetings, technical review of proposed plans or documents, general information and education, technical assistance and modeling, things like potential program costs, benefits, and impacts, exploratory and foundational research, data analysis, evaluation, and model or tool development. And this is also in the application. And these are some examples of the types of technical assistance available. So the timeline for the technical assistance process is as follows. The application is live online now. We're having a webinar today to give an overview, walk through the application, and answer questions. And then very importantly, the applications are due on Friday, May 29th at midnight Eastern time. After that, we'll begin reviewing the applications and we'll begin to notify selected applicants in June. In terms of the review process, it's as follows. First, we will assess the applications based on our review criteria, which is on the application, but we'll also go over that in the next slide. Then we will match the selected applications with a TA provider that has expertise in the area of the technical assistance request. And then finally, we will notify the NCSP partner, and they'll begin to work with the TA provider. Now, there are three criteria that will determine which applications are selected for technical assistance. The first is that it meets the overall merits of the application. So the request is well defined, forward-looking. Very importantly, that it is specific and it's within the scope of the program. The requester is well positioned also to address the challenge and has identified or involved any partner organizations that are going to be necessary to actually get the work done. Then there is whether the project will have a significant impact and whether the TA products that result from these TA engagements will be usable by other jurisdictions. And then finally, whether the request aligns with the NCSP goals of making community solar accessible and affordable for all U.S. households, and enabling communities to realize the supplementary benefits and other value streams from community solar. So next, we're going to give you a feel for what this TA could look like, which hopefully this will help folks be as specific as possible in their applications and help them think about what they would like to get out of this. We now have some examples of what some technical assistance engagements have looked like on the ground. So first, we have Naeem Dargouf. He will give us an example of technical assistance provided by one of the providers, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Naeem is a researcher at Berkeley Lab in the same department as me, Electricity Markets and Policy Department. And there he conducts research on solar rate design and customer economics for renewables. And he has experience providing TA in those areas, both domestically and internationally. And he will now tell us about one of those TA engagements. So Naeem, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Greg. So what I'm going to be doing today is sharing one example of technical assistance that I've been involved with in the state of Connecticut. And this is really an example of informing solar regulation through techno-economic analysis. Next slide. So I wanted to bring a little bit of context, an introduction to this work. Berkeley Lab received funding under a project called the Public Utility Commission Analytical Support Project. It was funded by DOE. It has the unfortunate acronym of PUCAS, though I guess PUCAS would be a nicer acronym for that. We were selected for technical assistance in 3 states, Indiana, Maryland, Connecticut, and we worked with NREL as well on a couple of those, and NREL had another state. And just the high-level topics for technical assistance as part of the project was looking at energy regulations, program design, as well as solar modeling analysis and tool development. So that's how it kind of would line up into this particular project effort. The deliverables that we provided were in the form of technical memos that were delivered to the Public Utility Commissions, briefings or kind of slide decks that could be shared and then with the utility commissions, as well as presentations of those slide decks and technical memo, which were either kind of a more formal setting or informal with just the PUC staff. And to give you an idea of the process for this, we kind of first were, of course, approached by the PUCs who were interested in this project and had a proposal. Once those proposals were selected, we worked with the PUCs to really establish a statement of work, so we're really all on the same page in terms of deliverables and timeline. We set up an initial kind of 2 to 4 hour meeting, let's say, with the PUC staff to understand the context of the work. So really a deep dive into the policies, what's been done to date, what are the issues, so that we as technical assistance providers can provide the most relevant and informative work that would feed into the regulatory process. We then had, bi-weekly meetings with the PUC staff, and finally kind of delivered our products and had these remote presentations and discussions at several points in the whole about 18-month timeline. So next slide. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of the kind of work, and in order to do so, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into what I actually did. So we're going to talk about some specifics, and the point here is not really, though you may be interested in the actual analysis and the conclusions, and please feel free to contact me to discuss that. But it's really to give you an idea of the work and how it really fit into the process, and perhaps giving you ideas on how technical assistance could be helpful for you as well. So we provided analytical support to the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, or PURA. And so PURA is kind of the PUC equivalent for Connecticut, on the implementation of Section 7 of a legislation passed in Connecticut, PA 1850, which was called an Act Concerning Connecticut's Energy Future. And in particular, we focused on a part of the law that called for changes in tariffs related to the compensation of behind-the-meter solar, and that included a revision of the net metering rules. So as you may know, net metering is being revised, or at least looked at, in actually a majority of states in the US. And here, there were particular elements of net metering that were called to change. And so just to remind you, net metering allows all PV generation to reduce a customer's billed load, and that's regardless of the timing of that generation within the month. And moving towards something that's approaching net billing, where PV generation that's exported to the grid is compensated at a different rate, and that is usually lower than the retail rate. And what was being implemented in Connecticut is kind of something between the two, and a more form of net billing. Next slide. So the topic that we were working on was specific to the net billing implementation. And in particular, we were looking at the netting frequency, which is used to kind of determine how the PV exports are billed. And the netting frequency is to be reduced from 1 year, which is kind of the current net metering regulations, to a much smaller period. So either that could be a daily, a sub-daily, or real-time netting frequency, which is to be determined by PURA. So PURA kind of established a docket to study all issues relating to this kind of tariff order. And the analysis that we did kind of considers the implications of the choice of netting frequency on the amount of kilowatt hours metered as exports and the payback time for behind-the-meter PV systems, because PURA was interested on how changes to these policy decisions would impact the customer and the payback time and perhaps the solar market in the state. Next slide. So I'm going to go really quickly in just a few minutes and won't go through all the details of these slides, but just to, again, give you an idea of the work that we did. Again, we're looking to understand the impact of netting frequency on the billed PV exports in Connecticut. And then we're also looking to quantify how that netting frequency decision will impact payback times for customers throughout Connecticut. Next slide. So this is just to give you kind of a visual example of netting frequency and how it may impact the bill savings for a customer. So under shorter netting frequencies, so the top left shows an average day where you have the net load where you, during the day, you're exporting to the grid and injecting. And if you have an hourly or even shorter netting frequency, all that area in red is billed as exports. Now, as you increase the netting frequency and you only consider chunks of 4 hours or even 24 hours, you see that the billing exports decrease. And so what we did is to determine what those billing exports were under these 4 kind of regimes of netting frequency for customers. Next slide. So this is just an example, a result where we look at how the proportion of PV generation exported to the grid changes as you increase the PV system size. And as you would expect, the larger your system, the more PV you'll be exporting to the grid. But depending on how it's accounted for, you're going to have kind of larger proportion of PV generated for those smaller netting frequencies, and of course, vice versa. Next slide. And next slide. So then we quantified the impact of billed exports on the economics of solar, so the payback time. This is kind of a simple equation for the payback time. Next slide. And again, another example of the kind of work we did looking at specific types of customers within specific utilities using data that was shared by the utilities. And here we see kind of the impact of increasing PV system size on the payback time for these various netting frequencies. And we see that the 24-hour netting frequency, where you have fewest billed exports, is more advantageous for the customer in terms of payback time compared to those shorter netting frequencies. And so, of course, this will give an idea to Pura how the netting frequency decision will impact different types of customers in terms of payback time within the state. Next slide. And we can go to slide 29. And next slide. Great. And so just to give you an idea, so this was the kind of work we did. There were changes to the Connecticut legislation during our work or at the end of this particular work, effectively extending net metering through 2021 and pushing back the implementation of net billing, which is the kind of thing that, of course, will happen. So this work was kind of put on hold for another year, and then the PURA, as well as the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, was asked to initiate a joint value of DER, of distributed energy resource study. And so we continued our work with Connecticut PURA for this value of DER study. And so we did this by kind of reviewing a number of inputs and assumptions to be used in the study, providing feedback on the methodologies that are going to be used in the study, reviewing assumptions, and more importantly, kind of reviewing and providing comments on the draft value of a DER study, which hasn't been yet written yet. And so this is kind of work that's going to be done the next couple months. And we'll be providing feedback on a select number of stakeholder comments. This is a public process. A lot of people, of course, and organizations will provide comments to this. And Pura knows that a lot of these comments, come from people with vested interests, industry, utilities, whichever. And so we're kind of there to help them. Being kind of from a national lab, we don't have a vested interest one way or another, to kind of make sense of these comments and provide some validation or some context to some of the comments. So this hopefully gave you an idea of the type of work we've done in Connecticut and perhaps the type of techno-economic analysis that could be helpful for you in your state. So with that, thank you, and we'll talk again at the Q&A session. Back to you, Greg.
Thanks so much, Naeem. That was great. Next, we have an example from Alexandra Aznar from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Alexandra is a project leader in the Integrated Decision Support Group there. She works on clean energy policies and provides technical assistance to local, state, and national level policymakers. And prior to joining NREL, she worked for a local planning department in Indiana on alternative transportation initiatives, and at the Indiana University's Office of Sustainability on various sustainability efforts. So I will turn it over to you now, Alexandra. Go right ahead.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, my name is Alexandra Aznar, and I'm a project manager at NREL. And over the years, my colleagues and I at NREL have provided technical assistance on community solar to utilities, local government agencies, state agencies, and other entities. And so today I'm going to speak about one example of community solar TA that took place a couple of years ago to give you a sense of what TA with a national lab could look like. Next slide. So in 2017, NREL was approached by the California Department of Community Services and Development, or CSD, which is part of the State Health and Human Services Agency. And as you can see from its mission statement here on the slide, CSD is an anti-poverty agency, and it traditionally administers LIHEAP and WAP funds. And it had recently expanded into renewable energy at the time of this request. Next slide. CSD had funding available thanks to California's Climate Investments, which is a statewide initiative that directs proceeds from the state's cap and trade program to initiatives that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and support economic development, particularly in disadvantaged communities. And CSD wanted to use this funding to design a low-income community solar pilot project that would meet the agency's goals. Next slide. This table shows some of CSD's goals from a program design perspective and for CSD customers. And as you can see, there was strong emphasis on ensuring that this community solar pilot would be accessible to CSD customers and reduce their electricity costs. Next slide. Given these goals, over the course of a year, NREL provided different flavors of technical support at key project milestones. So the technical assistance began with a webinar and discussion for CSD staff on community solar design options to raise awareness of how projects are typically structured and the role CSD could possibly play in a pilot project. In the design phase, CSD issued a request for information, or RFI, to gain additional information from developers, utilities, and community members that would inform the design of the community solar pilot. And NREL staff provided an expert review of this RFI before issuance to improve its accuracy and help ensure that CSD would get the information it needed. In the third phase of TA, NREL provided guidance on best practices for scoring community solar development proposals. So this included information about key technical and financial assumptions that CSD should look for in proposals to ensure high quality. And lastly, NREL subject matter experts virtually attended working group meetings comprised of various stakeholders to advise on community solar finance approaches. Next slide. So this slide demonstrates some of the issues that NREL explored in that initial webinar with CSD about the role the agency wanted to play in community solar development. We talked through possible options, pros and cons of each, And all of this discussion helped inform the CSD's ultimate decision to partner with a community solar developer for these projects. Next slide. CSD ended up leading a competitive procurement process and issued 2 awards to Grid Alternatives to develop 2 low-income community solar projects, one in partnership with the Santa Rosa Band of Cahuilla Indians, and the other with the city of Richmond. And both of these projects are estimated to be completed by the first quarter of 2021. And if you'd like more information, I'd recommend checking out the link at that press release on the slide. Next slide. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this was one example of community solar technical assistance that NREL has engaged in. But if you'd like to get some other examples, I encourage you to look at the NREL state and local project map and see other cases of our technical support. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Alex. It was excellent. So finally, we have Kyle Fricker from the United States Department of Energy. Kyle is a technology manager working with the Technology to Market and Soft Cost teams at the Solar Energy Technologies Office at DOE, or CETO. He is also a part of the team at DOE that is leading the National Community Solar Partnership, and he's going to describe some technical assistance from a previous initiative. So over to you, Kyle.
Thanks, Greg. Hello, everyone. And also, I want to thank Naeem and Alexandra for their work in previous technical assistance efforts. So at this point, we've heard a lot about the many capabilities that the national labs can bring to bear to help support our NCSP partners' efforts. But we also wanted to spend some time on third-party TA opportunities. So in other words, technical assistance that's provided by subject matter experts outside of the national labs. To do that, I will walk through some examples of technical assistance that contestants in DOE's recent program, the Solar in Your Community Challenge, went through. And, I want to use these examples to spark ideas for you, our NCSP partners, as there are third-party TA resources available within NCSP, as Greg stated previously. Next slide, please. But first, just start with a brief overview of the Solar in Your Community Challenge that's on this slide. So essentially, contestants across the country competed to design and deploy local solar projects or programs that served either low and moderate income customers or nonprofit and local government off-takers. NREL produced a report detailing some of the innovative models tested by Solar in Your Community Challenge teams, and it's not surprising that they leverage a variety of different finance mechanisms and innovative approaches, putting them to test as they piloted these new models. And as a quick aside, the National Community Solar Partnership is a follow-on program to the challenge and is designed to essentially address some of these persistent barriers we know are out there, as we look to expand solar access to underserved communities, and also to help scale some of the successful models that came out of the challenge. Go to the next slide, please, Greg. And so here on this slide, we just wanted to paint a picture of the wide variety of third-party TA that happened during the challenge to seed ideas in the partners' minds. This slide just gives you a snapshot of some of the different TA engagements that occurred during the challenge that helped contestants advance their projects and programs. So starting at the top, there were feasibility studies to help evaluate different program structures and what that looks like under different utility rate designs. On outreach, there were projects around planning and implementing underserved community engagement strategies. We should also note that part of feasibility is also assessing sites and determining which designs and equipment are the best fit. And we Yeah, and we also had projects that involved coaching consultants to help them understand project financing options and funding sources, including some of the newer non-traditional capital options that are starting to come into this market. There were also efforts to help contestants with regulatory or contracting issues that arise as they're developing projects or programs. So that included reviewing contracts or reviews of program or project business models. And lastly there, just wanted to flag that there was also training gaps that technical assistants in the challenge could fill, for example, with project management as well as with design software. So again, this is just a brief overview of some of the work that happened during that program, but wanted you to see the breadth and also just understand how this complements some of the technical assistance that the labs can also provide directly, and also help you understand the potential to leverage the resources that we're bringing to the table for the partnership to help advance your community solar efforts and achieve your local goals. So with that, I'll turn it back to Greg.
Thank you very much, Kyle. I appreciate it. So I hope that gives everyone an idea of the types of technical assistance that are available, and through both the Lawrence Berkman National Lab, NREL, and then also through third-party providers. So next, I want to, now that we've discussed what technical assistance is available through the NCSP, and we've heard some examples of what that looks like on the ground, I want to walk you through the application process. Now, before anything, as I said before, if you're not yet registered as a partner, do that first, since you need to be a partner both to be eligible for TA, and you'll also need to be registered in order to access and to complete the TA application. And to register, you can go to DOE's NCSP webpage, which you can see here on the right. It has information about registering, and it's also got a link that will take you to the registration page, which you can see below there on the left. Now, once you're registered, step one to apply for technical assistance is to log into the NCSP community platform, which again is powered by Mobilize. On the right is what the homepage of the community platform looks like. When you get there, when you're going to apply, when you get to the community platform homepage, scroll down to find the post showing that the technical assistance application is now open. And what it looks like is down here on the left, you see there, and there's a link to the TA application where it says, click here to apply. So by clicking that, or here we also have this, the next step is to go to the application. Now the application is in Google Forms. This is the full link to the application, and then below here is what you will see when you get there. And please read through the introduction because there is some important information there for example, the goals of the partnership, the criteria for application selection, as well as the areas of technical assistance that are available through the partnership. So the first thing that you'll see when you start an application are questions about your organization, and then also about any organizations that you are going to partner with, and that is other team members on your project. And that includes, it will be asking for contact information for staff points of contact at your organization and at each team member organization. And this shows you a few of the questions and what you'll see there. Next are questions. You'll see questions about your project and your request for technical assistance. On the right, you see a place to select which area of TA your request is going to best fit under. And then below, you see that there is a place to provide a summary of your request, a narrative summary there. And we do ask that you be as specific as possible. And then the last sort of step, we're getting close to the last step, is the section that gives you a chance to provide a narrative description of both the justification for your TA request and then also the desired outcomes that you'd like to see with the support of this technical assistance. So there are 8 questions in this section. If you look to the right here, you can see those questions underneath is the prompt for that section. And it will involve answering the questions in a Word document. And we're asking that you keep your answers to 2 pages. And then after you answer the questions in the Word document, you will upload that document. So we have created an application template for this section, which has the narrative questions on it. It's available on the community platform. To the right, again, you see the prompt and the TA application for this justification and desired outcome section. And then circled in red there is a link to the page on the community platform where you can get the application template. And then below, you see what it looks like on the NCSP community platform when you get there. That's where you'll find the document. You can also get to this by logging into the community platform and going to the Files tab, and then looking in the Technical Assistance folder, which, by the way, is going to be the same place where you'll be able to find the slides from this webinar once they're posted. Now, once you've completed the questions in the application template, then you can upload the document in the TA application, following the instructions that are here. This is a snapshot from the application, and then clicking the button that's circled there below. And that will allow you to search for and select the document that you want to upload. It walks you through it pretty well. One very important note, and I posted about this on the community platform recently, is that unfortunately Google Forms will not save your answers until you've submitted your application. So once you submit it, you will receive an email confirmation of your submission, and that will have a link for you to be able to return to your application, and you'll be able to change or add to your answers then. The one exception is the uploaded file. Once that is uploaded, you can't change or replace it. Therefore, I would say the best way to approach the application in order to work on it at your own pace is to first download the application template with the questions from the justification and desired outcome section, which again you can find on the community platform under the Files tab and then in the Technical Assistance folder. And once you've completed that, then go to the application, finish the application, upload the document with your answers to the narrative questions, and then submit the application. After that, you'll be able to change anything you want in the application if you want to, except for the uploaded document. So with that, I am going to end it, and I will open it up for questions. And Naeem has generously agreed to help us by reading the questions for us from the TA box. Naeem, you there?
Yes, thank you so much, Greg. So we have a lot of questions, so we're going to have rapid fire answers to these. So a few questions on the program, the total budget allocated, the maximum number of requests that can be supported in 2020, as well as whether there are rapid-fire TA requests that would be accepted.
Well, I would say that we do have a few different levels of technical support assistance that we can support. So we can support smaller requests through larger requests. We also do have a limited budget, so but we will have to see what we get in terms of requests and figure out how many of the requests we'll be able to support. Kyle Fricker is also going to help me with these questions. And Kyle, is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, apply in with the full scope of what you think you need help with. And like Greg said, we have the capability to do larger scale TA. So we're talking, weeks to, maybe a month or two of engagement with experts. So many hours of time. So don't feel limited. But we're also open to smaller requests that say just require 4 hours of a subject matter expert's time. And then on like the total budget figure, I mean, that's not a public, we haven't announced that publicly, but the program, the whole partnership was appropriated funding from Congress. And then you could see in the appropriations language that there is $10 million allocated to this effort. So.
Great. And what is the approximate timeline of technical assistance? So when someone is selected, how long will it take? How long do they have to actually provide that technical assistance?
I'm sorry, what was the last part there, Naeem?
So once it's selected, how long does the technical assistance last, or what is the timeline after that?
Well, that would depend on the request itself. As Kyle was saying, these could be requests that are very small, don't take that much time, to ones where TA providers are engaging with the partner over several months. Kyle, you want to say anything else about that? I think people should plan when they're applying to think about the TA happening in like the summer time frame. So late June through say early September, but there is a little bit of flexibility there.
Okay, great.
And one thing, sorry, Naeem, before you start, one other thing I should mention is that we will have. This will be the first round of direct technical assistance, but we will have other rounds.
Excellent. So is it possible for one organization to get support for more than one TA application? And so would you advise that an organization just submit one, or could they submit several applications?
Kyle, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I would just say, my advice would be to down select internally to what TA is the most critical need at your organization. But your TA application could have multiple parts within it. So it's kind of a case by case thing, but my recommendation would not be to submit 10 separate technical assistance applications.
Great, and that actually answered a few questions around that particular issue. So there are. And
actually, one other point on the TA applications that I think we just want to emphasize is that in the next weeks, we encourage you to think critically about what technical assistance you need, and also use the Mobilize platform, as a resource to help start testing ideas or locating potential other partners who maybe you could form a team with, or start the networking early, because I think part of the criteria around selection is that you're well positioned to be able to use that technical assistance to actually move the ball forward with regard to your project or program. So there needs to be some level of work ahead of time to get to the point where you can justify that. So please use that as a resource.
Great. So should multiple groups working on a single community solar project register as a single entity and put in one application, or should they register individually?
I think that one's also better for you.
Yeah, I think the same logic applies, that if it's for the same technical assistance request, then they can apply together and list the team members in the application. But if it's a separate topic area entirely, then a different organization could throw in another application. But yeah, we'll leave it to the partners to make that judgment call.
And there is there's sufficient space on the application to add, I think, 2 more team members for a project. You can there is room in those if you need to put extra information in those. You can.
There are a few questions related to third parties providing TA, so non-national lab providing TA as partners. Is that a possibility within this project?
It is. We do
so
have.
Go ahead. I was going to say that if you are an entity that is interested in providing TA, you can email the email address on the DOE site. It's communitysolar@ee.doe.gov, so that can be tracked. And I will also just say that during the program, NCSP leadership will evaluate TA resource needs regularly, and will work with LBNL and be in touch as opportunities arise to provide that TA. So, but in the meantime, I would encourage folks to engage on the platform and seek opportunities to collaborate with partners in other ways if they feel like they can provide that kind of support.
Great, and kind of a follow-on to that, someone would be interested, one would want to know about collaboration to find out who's interested in working on what, and is there a way for someone who would like to provide TA to kind of know who's interested in what kind of project, so that they could reach out to discuss possible collaborations?
Yeah, I would say that's perfect use case for the platform itself.
Okay, so it would be putting it, kind of asking those questions and monitoring the platform?
Yes, that would be my recommendation at this point.
Okay, there's a quick question about costs. Is there kind of cost sharing requirements? So this person was just asking if it's not free, then the city council tends not to approve projects.
There is the technical assistance is free. There is no cost sharing.
Okay, great. So a couple of questions about where we can find the slides to the webinar at the conclusion of the webinar, and I guess a follow-on would be the recording.
Yes, so the webinar slides will be available on the NCSP community platform. When you go there, if you go, there is a Files tab at the top. Click that, and there are a bunch of folders. And there's a technical assistance folder, when you click in there, that is where you will find the slides, and I will get them up as soon as I can.
Excellent. I'm trying to identify there are a lot of very specific questions. I'm trying to identify general ones. Can a team ask to work with a specific TA provider?
I would say that in your application, if you have an idea of the subject matter expertise that you're seeking, include that. But you cannot directly ask to be matched with a specific TA provider.
Okay, are all the outputs and deliverables from technical assistance work kind of open to the public, or at least available to all NCSP participants?
Well, we do hope to use some of the products. We hope that some of the TA products will be, replicable and usable in other jurisdictions. That said, Carol, I don't know if this is a question about an entity not wanting to share some aspect of it. I'm not sure if you
I mean,
specific answer to that.
With this kind of stuff, we're definitely respectful of sensitive or confidential information. So, I think we always look in these types of engagements to create outputs that could be useful to other stakeholders. But at the same time, we realize that there are sometimes sensitive components, and there will likely be in many of these engagements materials that would stay private between the TA provider and the recipient.
So
great.
I think we have. I was going to say, I think we have time for one more question, and I am going to stick up another slide that has some information here for folks to follow up. And it does, in the middle there, you see the community.solar email address that Kyle mentioned earlier.
Great. So the one is actually just repeating how organizations can reach out to you to serve as experts for technical assistance, or where they can find that information. And there are a number of questions on this, so I think it's worth repeating.
Yeah, if you are interested, submit. Send an email to the email address that's on the slide right now with, with who you are and what your expertise is that you want to bring to bear. And like I said, we'll be tracking that and then make decisions based on the resource needs that we have, and we'll be in touch at later dates if opportunities arise. But don't let that, don't let that stop you from engaging on the platform, finding partners to collaborate with in other ways outside of the technical assistance application, and use the network to help advance community solar.
Great. Are we going to be able to respond to the questions individually? I think we can save them. We have open questions.
Yeah, we do. We have saved the question. Hopefully it's supposed to save. And we will try to get back to everyone who we have not responded to. But I would like to thank everybody for joining, and thanks especially to Naeem, Alexandra, and Kyle. And look forward to hearing from all of you on the community platform and hopefully in other ways as well. Thank you, and have a great day.